Welcome to this channel, which is devoted to a reading and better understanding of the book Ascent of Mount Carmel by St. John of the Cross. Today we're on the third book, the 26th chapter. In the last chapter, St. John described for us the evils that might come to us when we take joy in the things of the senses. In this chapter, St. John describes the benefits that come to us when we practice self-denial in regard to these pleasures. Some of these benefits that we will gain are spiritual and others are temporal. The first benefit: when we withhold our joy from the things of the senses, we eliminate distractions and may then redirect our joy and rejoicing to God. In this way we preserve and even increase our spirituality and the virtues on a continual basis. This is true continuous improvement.
Hi Bill. What's going on today?
Well, I'm very busy working on continuous improvement.
The second benefit that comes from denying ourselves the pleasures of the senses is that it separates us from base animals. When we get wrapped up in the things of the senses, we stop noticing the things of God. But even animals get joy and pleasure from things of the senses. So when we rejoice in things other than the senses, it's one of the things that sets us apart from beasts. What was sensual becomes spiritual, and that which was animal becomes rational. And even that the soul is journeying from a human life to a portion which is angelical, and that, instead of being temporal and human, it becomes celestial and divine. St. John tells us that sensuality is contrary to spirituality. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, for these are contrary to one another, so that you do not the things that you would. When one kind of power is diminished or eliminated, the contrary power grows, because it was hindered by the first kind of power. Thus, when the spirit is perfected, which is the higher part of the soul and the part that has relations with God and receives his communications, it merits all these attributes aforementioned, since it is perfected in heavenly and spiritual gifts and blessings of God. The sensual man perceiveth not these things that are of the Spirit of God, for it is foolishness to him, and he cannot understand because it is spiritually examined. By withdrawing our joy from the things of the senses, we are well disposed to receive the spiritual blessings of God. We will be better to understand all things, even the deep things of God. But the spiritual man judgeth all things, and he himself is judged of no man. The third benefit is sort of a paradox. When we withdraw our joy from things of the senses, we receive greater pleasure and joy in temporal matters. And every one that hath left house, or brethren, or sister, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold. So, if we deny ourselves one joy, the Lord will give us 100-fold in this life, both spiritually and temporally. Please note that these rewards are not necessarily money and comfort. St. John is not a prosperity preacher. When we withdraw from the pleasures of the senses, at once we receive the greater knowledge of God that we referred to a few moments ago. St. John tells us that if we maintain our spiritual purity, we will find in all things a knowledge of God which is joyful and pleasant, chaste, pure, spiritual, glad, and loving. We also receive the temporal gifts of mental agility and clarity. Through the eye that is purged from the joys of sight, there comes to the soul a spiritual joy directed to God in all things that are seen, whether divine or profane. Through the ear that is purged from the joy of hearing, there comes to the soul most spiritual 100-fold, directed to God in all that it hears, whether divine or profane. Even so it is with all the other senses when they are purged. Our goal is to make this kind of self-denial a habit. St. John does provide a caution to us as we take this course. We must fear that since we are not yet spiritual, we may perchance derive the practice of these things a pleasure and an energy which is of sense rather than of spirit, that the energy of sense may predominate in all our actions, and this may lead to an increase of sensuality and may sustain it and nurture it. St. John continues that if we have not yet mortified our pleasure in things of the sense, we may fall into the trap of making great use and power and operation of the sense in respect to these things, thinking that they will help us to become more spiritual. For the powers of the soul will increase the more without the intervention of these things of the senses. That is, if we can quench the joy and the desire for these things of the senses rather than indulge our pleasure in them. Well, I hope you enjoyed this installment of Ascent of Mount Carmel. We'll be back again with another installment in about a week, but in the meantime, please pray for the church.
Then you mellow down easy. Mellow down easy. You mellow down easy when they really want to blow your top.